Welcome into the KwikCast, the official podcast of Kwik Trip. My name is Chris Calloway, and I'm joined today by Jamie Gay, the director of the Sweet Goods Bakery here at Kwik Trip. Jamie, good morning, and welcome onto the KwikCast.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
And as we release this on Friday, June 7th, it is National Donut Day. We are celebrating by giving away a free Long John when you add the coupon in your Kwik Rewards app. So we wanted to talk to you all about the donuts here at Kwik Trip. So first question, how much of your life revolves around donuts?
I spend a lot of time at the sweets facility, and then beyond that, I'm in the stores all the time. My kids love the donuts. You can't even hardly walk past the 3-pack premium without my kids picking one up. So I see them every single day.
Do they know that that's what mom does? She's in charge of all the donuts that Kwik Trip puts out?
They do, yeah. They think it's pretty cool.
That's awesome. So let's rewind a little bit. You're in your director role now with the Sweet Goods Bakery, but can you kind of tell us about your career path and how you ended up in the role that you're in today?
Sure. So I started at Kwik Trip in 2003. I was actually a seasonal coworker, and I was going to college at the time, so I worked summers. After college, I stayed on with Kwik Trip because I was offered a supervisor role. So I was one of the individuals that started the pizza line when that first came in. I was with Kwik Trip probably 13, 14 years. I decided to leave, and I went and worked for another facility for 3.5 years. And then the director position opened up for Sweets Bakery. And I wanted to get back with Kwik Trip because I really loved the company. So applied, and here I am 4 years later.
And so having, a little bit of a rounded background, different facilities in and out of Kwik Trip, I'd imagine that kind of enhanced your overall perspective of what your main focus is in day to day within the Sweet Goods Bakery, right?
Yeah, even as most people with Kwik Trip, you do a lot of different roles. So not only was I someone who I worked on the production line, I managed the schedule. I was a safety coordinator for a little while. I would do make to stock. I would do make to order. I went into purchasing for a little while. Just many different things. And then you put that all together, and you just being well-rounded and knowing kind of what's gone on in all those different areas just really helps you to connect with the group that you have.
Sure. The empathy for the roles that they're in, and the super important roles that, make the company go, the people in production, the people in retail, those coworkers. We'd be nowhere without them. And I think having been in those shoes, you can certainly be a testament to that as well, right?
It definitely helps. Yeah.
Sure. So I want to start first when we're talking about donuts. We have to talk about the Glazer. It's synonymous with Kwik Trip. It's been around, I would say, largely unchanged for the last 20 years. Is that about right? Are we pretty close to the original recipe, or how many tweaks have there been to the Glazer?
There has not been many tweaks to the Glazer at all. I definitely wasn't there when they started. But from my understanding is one of the BPs for Kwik Trip was traveling and saw the donut at another destination, and Kwik Trip at the time kind of knew that Krispy Kreme was coming into town. So kind of just a little bit of an edge there as well. He came back and he said, hey, we need to make this glazed donut. I think it's something that we really need to do at our facilities. And lo and behold, I don't think it took entirely too long, but they started coming out. And I can tell you, I was working at the kitchens at the time. And it was amazing because when they did their test runs, they couldn't sell the product, so they had to give it away. And we all benefited from that at other facilities.
Very nice. And so if the product itself hasn't changed that much in the last 20 years, I would imagine just kind of the quantity and scale in which they're getting produced is ramped up a little bit over the past 20 years, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, for sure. So I've heard stories that when the Glazers first started, they would have vans that were waiting outside. So as soon as the product was done, they would load it onto a van, and then they would start delivering to the stores. Model's a little bit different now, but we still make Glazers every single day of the year. So what we do is stores will put in their order, and whatever that order is the quantity that we make for the day. So we have a fresh order that comes in every single day. So as we complete the orders, we send them to the DC. They're loaded onto trucks and shipped out to the stores. Pretty much the same, just a lot larger scale.
Are those produced at a certain time of the day, or is it sort of different? mean, I'm sure there's certain lines running 24/7. My point is, I get to work right around 8 a.m. I get out of my car, and one of the first things I can tell which way the wind is blowing, because I was like, I think it might be a Glazer day over there, because you can smell it, and it's an amazing smell. But is that maybe what I'm smelling in the morning, or it could be any of our baked goods, I imagine?
I mean, it could be Glazers because they're made every single morning. We have people that come in to mix the Glazers, and they start very early in the morning. It is not uncommon for some of the production people in our facility to be there at like 2 o'clock in the morning making
Wow.
product. So we start Glazers very early, and then depending on how large the order is how long we run them. So there's sometimes we're done producing maybe 9:30 in the morning on that line, and there's sometimes where it goes into second shift and we may not be done until like 7 o'clock at night.
So can you kind of give us the overhead view of how a Glazer gets made? Obviously, there has to be some raw ingredients at some time, and at the end of the line, it's a guest eating it at a store. But kind of what are the main points there between in the whole donut making process?
Sure. So it's just a very large scale compared to what you do at home, but you add in all your raw ingredients and you make a dough out of it. Right now, what we do is we kick that dough onto a sheeting line. So then what we do is we take the dough and we flatten it, and we as it goes through the sheeting line, we make sure it gets to a certain width on the belt because we're going to stamp the circular shapes onto the donuts. As that happens, then we actually push out the middle piece, so your little donut round in the middle. Those will drop out, and then they continue on the line and they travel just down a series of belts, and then they go into a proof box. The proof box is quite large. And then they ride through that system, activating the yeast. And then when they're done there, they dump out onto another conveyor and they go through a fryer. So halfway through the fryer, the donut flips over. So you've got both sides fried. And then they travel down on more conveyor and go through the glazer. So we have a waterfall glazer of glaze that actually the donuts just travel up underneath that waterfall and get coated with the glaze. Then we have a carousel that donut rides on in order to give it some dry time. And then after that, it goes through a metal detector. Then our coworkers start picking up those donuts and putting them into boxes. The boxes get closed, go through a metal detector, they get dated, and then they're put onto a bread rack, a tray. So, and then we stack those all up and ship them down to the DC.
So, after it gets to the DC, it's a little out of your control, but that time frame between raw ingredients and getting onto that bread rack, then, I mean, how long does it take for that glazer? Are we talking like an hour, a couple hours, 15 minutes? I mean, what's that whole process like?
I would say probably roughly an hour and 45 minutes.
Okay. Interesting. And has that been one of the things that the enhancements to the facility, is it working on just making more glazers? Is it making them faster? The different upgrades that you've had over the years. I mean, what have those focused in on doing, kind of mechanically speaking?
We probably haven't had a whole lot of enhancements to this line. It was pretty state of the art when it went in. We have had to redo all the electrical on the line, things like that. We're more focused on not sending back as much scrap to use up throughout the day, keeping our waste down. Our weights are in control, so we have better yield, things like that.
Okay.
It's one of the things that I found absolutely amazing is our supervisors and assistants are so good on the glazer line that you can go down there and they do a cutoff. So they will actually say, okay, I'm counting how many donuts I feel are on this line right now, how many are on the spiral, how many are in the proof box, how many are on the sheeting line. And they actually determine when to cut off those doughs. And they can come to the point that they're, about 5 minutes off, which is amazing.
Wow.
Just to
And
reduce all the waste.
yeah, I mean, that efficiency, I would imagine what it's all about. And when you're working at a scale like that, and I guess that scale is what's interesting to me too. We call it the Sweet Goods Bakery because it's different than the Bread and Buns Bakery. And I was walking through our history hallway here at the Sports Center, and I saw that in 2011, the new bakery offices opened, and then in 2019, the Bread and Buns Bakery facility opened. So can you kind of take me through the last 15 years or so and share kind of at what point did it become necessary to split the bakeries in two and have those separate production facilities?
So I don't know a whole lot about the history behind it, But what I do know is that the bread and the bun actually started out in the same area as the Glazers were,
Hmm.
and were quickly moved out of that area because they ran out of space. And then it's what we consider blue sweets right now. It's where we make all of our cinnamon rolls and bagels, muffins, Danish. That was actually the bread and bun plant up until the new facility was built. So that whole area is where they made all the bread and buns. So when they moved to the new facility, we have actually taken that over. So some of the equipment that they left behind, we now use that to make our sweet goods there.
Interesting. And so obviously they're able to make more bread and buns efficiently in that separate building, but then you just naturally sort of filled in that space. And you talked about the blue. I mean, what makes the different categories what they are within the sweet goods bakery?
Sure. So we have three different areas of just production in the sweet goods. So we have their primary colors, red, yellow, and blue. The reason we did that is because we got an MES system, which is a manufacturing execution system. So SAP deals with all of our inventory. What this does is it is actually the flow of making all of our products. It delivers process orders down to our equipment. It downloads recipes, things like that. And we actually use that to make our production. So when that system came in, because we have fryers in multiple different areas, you can make a cake donut in yellow, you can make it in red. And at the time what we did this, you can make it in blue as well. So in order to make sure that we didn't send the wrong process order to the wrong area, we actually color coded them on our screens so that our coworkers would know if I'm working in blue and it's a regular cake donut, the process order that I want is the one in blue. Otherwise, it got very confusing.
Sure. And so, I was just looking at our org chart, and you have maybe 300 or so coworkers that help run the Sweet Goods Bakery. You have
Mm-hmm.
the production team, which is a huge part of it, research and development, safety, production coordinators, schedule writers. I would imagine that number has kind of grown steadily over the years, but can you kind of describe some of those roles and how they help the facility run?
Sure. So R&D, we have one person at our Sweets Bakery that's dedicated to R&D. His name is Dan Walters. Does a really good job of making sure he's staying in touch with the vendors, seeing what's hot out and trending in the just trending in the market right now. What should we be doing? What should be our next LTO? What category should we be going after? And then our safety coordinators. So we have two of them in our facility. We have one on first and one on second shift. They have been tremendous help in just looking at our ergonomics, helping out our coworkers. If someone is to get injured or has a first aid or a near miss, they address all those things. They do audits of our facility to make sure that we're in compliance with everything that's needed. They help out with forklift safety and then also writing lockout tagout plans.
So, I mean, you need all those pieces to help make the facility work. But I want to talk about that research and development. You mentioned Dan. Been doing some really cool stuff with baked goods. You said we haven't touched glazers really over the last 20 years, but dunkers we've gotten a little creative and inventive with. And it's been really an awesome response. And, I think in the last couple of years, the lemon ones I thought were really, really good. The cherry were so good that they stuck around. The raspberry one, people went crazy for. I mean, you see people posting on Facebook, like, where can I find them? What stores have them? I mean, that's got to be a good feeling when you see stuff like that you put out something new and, our guests love it. But what goes into deciding, okay, we want to put a raspberry dunker in the stores? How do we get there? Can you take me through kind of that whole limited time process?
Sure. So obviously we had our cherry was our most recent one besides the raspberry. So what we do is we work with our vendor to see what are some of the flavors that are out there that they already have. And then what we do is we'll make up several different flavors and then we'll get them in front of more of like a focus group. So there's category management, productions there, retail leaders are there. Obviously the R&D group is there. And what we do is we go through and taste all of these different ones to try and decide what is going to be the next one that's coming out. So cherry was a huge hit for us. Obviously raspberry
Mm-hmm.
was even better. People went crazy over that one. We were
Right.
a little shocked at our facility and a little behind the eight ball with our vendor. but we ended up getting them out there for them again. Our next one's actually going to be a pink lemonade. So raspberry is unfortunately going to be going away for a little
Mhm.
while. We'll see kind of what response we get from our guests that way, but pink lemonade should be coming out and should be in stores probably July.
That's awesome. So next couple of weeks, you'll see a brand new Dunker flavor. And the other sort of Dunker adjacent product we have is the blueberry Dunker chips that are a limited time. Have you gotten a chance to taste those? I think they're pretty spot on to the donut flavor.
I haven't had them personally myself, but I have had a lot of people tell me that it's kind of weird because they're a chip, but they're
Hmm.
also very sweet. But according to numerous people, they're pretty spot on with the flavor of the Dunker. They like
Yes,
them.
I agree. I like them a lot. And so, I mean, we talked about Persians, Long Johns, cake donuts, cinnamon rolls, bagels. Are there any of them that are particularly, I don't know, difficult is the right word, but are there any special like nuances that make one different than your standard, Glazer Dunker that you're producing maybe a higher quantity of?
We make a lot of yeast rays, obviously, that you mentioned. So your Persian, your Bismarck, your Long John, whether it's plain or filled, a lot of those. Obviously, our number one selling item is Glazers.
Hmm.
We make, last year alone, we made over 47 million Glazers.
It's a crazy number.
It's absolutely crazy. So yeah, but like Persians, I wouldn't say they're more difficult to make, but for me, um, I think it's more interesting
Hmm.
because you're also, you have your sheet of dough that you've got on the line. You're adding your cinnamon to it, and then you actually take a torpedo and you wind up that dough. So it's kind of almost looks like a very long snake.
Sure.
Um, then that travels actually down a couple different conveyors off to the side, and we cut it. And as we cut that, we put it onto a belt that actually retracts and places it on the proof box tray by itself, which is pretty cool to watch.
That's awesome. And then Bismarcks and Long Johns, I would imagine there's a whole separate part of the machine that you have to fill those. I mean, some are unfilled, but whether you're putting chocolate or cream or vanilla, I mean, how does that whole process come together? Is it pretty seamless?
So, a lot of changes in that area, I would say.
Right.
So, when I first got to the bakery 4 years ago, coworkers were actually picking up each donut, and they had like hand fillers. So they would hit a machine which would pump into the donuts. So you'd see the holes on the side of the
Hmm.
donuts. Um, so every single donut got picked up, filled, and then put into a tote. Now what we have is we have automatic fillers,
Hmm.
and it's really awesome to watch. So they're big hoppers that sit on top of the conveyor, and there's needles that actually come down and inject into every single donut. I'm telling you, this equipment is smart enough to know where there is a donut and where there is not a donut, to where it should fill and where it should not fill. So
That's crazy. I imagine somebody had that repetition for years of filling by hand, and then one day they get to do something else. I mean, that's an awesome piece of technology that we have, and you see the donuts then with like it's the three little holes like on the bottom of a long john, right?
yeah, so they come in through the side now. Yep.
Okay, side,
Well,
yes.
I'm sorry. Long John, it's the four on the top.
Okay,
And then if you look at like a Bismarck, it's more of a round pattern. So
okay.
there should be 8 needle marks on the top of that, just to make sure that if you bite into whatever side of the Bismarck, you're supposed to be able to get filling in every bite.
The things that you need to make sure for the guest experience there. That's awesome. But you get the donut. You like you said, it's fried, it's flipped, it's boxed, and then it's sent to the stores. And it's the retail coworkers that are the ones that are kind of put that finishing touch on it before it gets in the bakery case, right?
Correct. Yep. So retail does all of the icing on the top and whatever kind of decorations there is. We've got some pretty talented coworkers out there too, with some of their designs that they'll do every once in a while.
So then the icing is that like done? I mean, made up in the stores and the sprinkles. Do they get a little bit of freedom about what they want to make, or is it you're making this many with the cinnamon roll frosting, this many chocolates, or is it kind of based off of what they think their store needs?
They do it based off of their store. So they know kind of what they sell the most of, and
Hmm.
that's what they'll ice and decorate to that. But we actually make the snow white icing and the maple icing in our facility. put it into buckets, and then we send it to the stores.
Wow. Okay. So that's got its own little corner of the facility then, just the icing side of things.
Yep.
Awesome. So if you're doing quality control, then you don't have necessarily an iced finished product. If you're gonna take a bite out of it and make sure it's a more of a raw long john or something, so to speak.
So we have it towards the plain portion. Yeah, it's not iced, but what we do is when we do our icing, we also have sample cups that we put from each dough, and all of that
Okay.
is quality control tested as well.
Okay. So let's say you're walking into Quick Trip in the morning. Is it like choosing favorites when you're walking up to the bakery case, or do you try to sample all of them, or do you have one that you are maybe picking out more often than not?
If it's me personally, I'd go with the maple
Yes.
iced Persian.
Mhm.
It's kind of
Yeah,
my favorite.
I like that. And anytime I see one of those though with the cinnamon roll frosting, I think they've been doing that more often. Like that's game over. It's hard to say no to one of those.
Yeah, those are really good.
So what else are we missing about the facility as a whole? I know you said you mentioned 47 million glazers. Is that running pretty close to 24/7? I mean, can we even make
Mhm.
more than that?
We've got more room for sure. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Um, so really, it really depends on what orders come in. But yeah, there's some days that we could definitely, we don't even fill a whole first shift with glazers, but then there's some days where we'll fill two shifts. So we definitely have more capacity for glazers. Yes.
Does that mean that there's some upgrades coming down the pipeline this year?
I can tell you that retail has asked several times what's next for the glazer category.
Hmm.
I don't know just yet. We've
Okay,
got to figure out some stuff on our end, but I would love to be able to probably give, even if it's maybe just even a glaze that's different flavor
sure.
than normal. So
I think that'd be awesome. I mean, I think we've done our part on the marketing side. We rolled out the Glazers Christmas sweater last year, and those were gone in maybe 36 hours. They lasted. It was awesome to see those fly off the shelves. We have hats, T-shirts. It's just one of those things, like you said, synonymous with the brand, and you can't have Quick Trip without Glazers, and you can't have Glazers without Quick Trip, and that's an awesome kind of iconic thing that we've got going.
yeah, we love having them at our facility. I can tell you that.
So National Donut Day is coming up on Friday. Like we mentioned, we got that free Long John coupon in the app, but got lots of other things going on in stores. And so if I were to give you a hypothetical here, if you're walking into Quick Trip with $20 and I said, okay, you got to come out with a meal for the family, you might finish it off with some glazers or donuts, but what are you going to come home with dinner for $20 at Quick Trip?
If I didn't come home with the fried chicken, my oldest would be very mad at me, especially the dark meat. So
Mm-hmm.
that's her go to every single time. My son absolutely loves the mac and cheese. You can't
Okay.
go wrong with that. So, and then you throw in like a side of potatoes, you're golden.
Very nice. What about if we got into the dairy side of things? There's a big debate about brown cap versus green cap chocolate milk. Do you have a preference? Which way would you lean in that debate?
I am brown cap all the way.
Right. That's always the right answer. I mean, if you're having just a little bit, brown cap's the way to go. And then what's one more thing that you appreciate, you love working about Quick Trip? We have coworker appreciation week coming up here in June too. In you have a ton of awesome coworkers that help bring the Sweet Goods Bakery together. But what's one of those things that especially coming back to Quick Trip in your career path here, that you kind of are thankful for being in the company here that we work for?
There's so many things. Honestly, it's hard to narrow it down. I mean, Scott is an amazing person. The family is awesome. You can't ask for someone better to own your company that you work for. Currently, this week, right now, it's safety days for. I know all productions doing it. I'm not sure about everyone else, but we give away so many prizes and gifts to our coworkers just to emphasize the week and just say thank you for working safely at our facility and being with us beyond coworker appreciation week. The fact that you can go to the stores and you have all these coupons in your app and you get everything for free, it's really super crazy. My kids always go with me and they love picking out all the stuff and are just absolutely amazed when you go up to the counter and you ring it all up and they're like, all right, thank you. and you don't owe a penny. So, I mean, the gift card for your birthday, like who does that?
Right.
That's awesome. Bonus checks at the end of the year. I mean, just random things throughout the year. Um, I wouldn't want to be anywhere else.
Great place to work for sure. And that's an awesome place to end. National Donut Day, Friday, June 7th. Lots of other cool stuff coming up in June. And there'll be Glazers there every step of the way. Jamie Gay, director of the Sweet Goods Bakery, we appreciate your time. And thank you for joining us here on the KwikCast.
Thanks for having me.
And we'll see you next time.